All right, let's talk about some key requirements for the ISA 62443 zone and conduit model. So segmentation typically is a way we come in to reduce different logical zones with similar security requirements. And what does that mean? So for example, I could take all my OT servers or HMI, which are the human machine interfaces. I could put them in a logical zone. I could put my routers in a logical zone so that everything is zoned in different areas. Everything is not together, right? So you can decide to zone in different ways. And most of the time in security architecture, people implement the zoning method whereby you can put certain equipment, devices, infrastructure together, you know? So, and sometimes in OT especially, we have a lot of approach around isolation and defense in depth. What does that mean? I can isolate a critical equipment and make sure it's not connected to the network. So that equipment, the maintenance, every activity around it is just passive in nature. Somebody physically goes there, puts a flash drive that they would have scanned to make sure there's no antivirus, then they put it to make update or install patches, but it's not connected to the network. Let me ask you, why do you think somebody wants to do that? To just isolate a network or isolate a machine to avoid connecting them to the network? Why do you think somebody would like to do that? I reduce lateral movement. Thank you, Abe. That's right. Yep. I love that. You are using the right term. So you can reduce lateral movement because what I'm doing is if an equipment is very sensitive, think about it together. If I have an equipment in a nuclear facility that is designed to regulate carbon monoxide, just an example. My question is, do I want to connect such an equipment to the enterprise network? And if the answer is no, why not? Why am I scared to connect it to enterprise network? Remember that guy that was drunk? He just activated, a device without even knowing. So what stops somebody that is drunk that has access to your network to just mistakenly just change the setting on their phone, because they were drunk? Or if they are compromised because they are connected to the network. But if you limit lateral movement, then you stand a better chance that, okay, this equipment at least, number one, is not connected to the network, so I'm not worried. And believe it or not, a lot of critical infrastructure, especially in the nuclear space, most times are not connected to your conventional network. Just for that reason, right? Because you don't want somebody to make a mistake and launch a warhead, as an example, right? So you just don't want them connected to the network. What about if somebody hacks the system and now launch based on hacking the system? So there's a lot of nuances that makes it just say, you're not going to touch it. Security level, there are different protection level in terms of security level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. The first one talks about against casual coincidental violation, against intentional violation, protection against intentional violation using sophisticated means, then international violation using sophisticated means. So this is just giving us a level of security, SL1 to SL4, SL4 being the highest level of security around ISA 62443. There are foundational requirements also, FR1. So when you say foundational requirement, we have identification, authentication, use control, system integrity, data confidentiality, restricted data flow. These are just some terms in ISA 62443 also. Foundation. We all can agree, even in IT, right? All of us can agree. One of the first things we always look for is what? Asset management. Because if you don't even know what asset you have, what risk are we talking about? risk to what? The same thing in OT, we need to understand what the assets are. A real life case study here was Midwestern Electric Utility. They implemented a comprehensive asset discovery across 12 substations and 2 generation stations. So they identified 3,000 plus OT assets inventoried. Um, 27% of them previously undocumented. They had 215 systems classified as high or medium, which impact their bulk electric system. They have uncovered 37 unpatched vulnerabilities. So the question now is that you have to have asset discovery to understand what assets do we have. The key is not just identify my assets. I'm looking at which of the assets have potential weakness, which of them have we not installed the appropriate patches based on the weakness we've identified. Those are huge deal in operation technology also. And believe it or not, for OT, let me tell you what the mindset of most people in OT is. Unlike IT, OT folks, they are guys in manufacturing, in plants. They just want to do their work. They honestly don't care about all this IT stuff. They want to do their job and get bonus. And the last thing you want to tell an OT person is their plant manager. Can we all type PM? Just type PM. You know, PM is plant manager in OT, right? So can we type PM, please, everybody? Say plant manager. The last thing you want to tell a plant manager is, oh, I want to shut down your system because we want to install a scanner on your OT environment to scan it. Ah, if you say that to them, they would, well, we know why they will be mad, right? They're not mad because you're trying to work. They are mad because one, you're slowing their production. Two, it's going to impact their bonus. I mean, sometimes those guys make hell of money from bonus. Somebody's bonus at times for meeting their timeline for manufacturing. Sometimes people get 200 grand for bonus. Sometimes 50 grand. I had a buddy that his yearly bonus was about 100 and something grand, right? For bonus. He works in manufacturing. So you can imagine not your base salary, your bonus, right? So for them, why would you shut my plant? They don't care. You want to do IT, go do your IT. Don't mess with my plant, right? But unfortunately, sometimes when you're setting up stuff, you're installing scanners, you have to shut down some of the equipment in the plant to scan, or maybe to install a patch or to do an upgrade. But for the plant managers, you better know what you're saying. Immediately, it's a natural no, and you can understand why, right? So it's a lot at stake for them. All right, network segmentation, another good use case here. A large pharmaceutical, prior to that, they had a flat network with 900 devices sharing same domain. So the approach was, they established zone segmentation, their production, their SCADA, which is their industrial control area, their engineering, then they have a demilitarized zone, DMZ. They deployed firewall between each of the zones, right? So don't overthink it. All I'm saying is that if you have a plant, why can't we group all the equipment together? Then install a firewall, simply a rule to say how data comes in and how data goes out, and implement a way to monitor each of those zones, to monitor it for potential vulnerabilities, right? So it's a very straightforward process. I'm saying you've always had this plant, it's working, but we want to make sure we segment it so that if there was an attack, we can separate the network. It does not affect the full-fledged OT network. So we are saying we can break it into smaller segments. If one area is attacked, it's bad enough, but we can contain it because we've segmented the network in that OT environment. And that's okay. We can come to your home, right? In your home front today, let's say you have some people can build an OT server in their home. Actually, you can. Let's say you have even your regular IT environment there. You set it up in a way that if a device is compromised, you can shut down that device so that it does not affect every other device in your home network. So it's the same thing for us in OT. We group different devices together. If one zone is compromised, we can shut it down and make sure it does not impact other zones. Then we can contain that. We can start doing forensic on that. then eventually analyze and eradicate the potential. We just follow our regular incident response at that point in time. Challenges encountered in this case, the project was delayed by 3 months due to legacy protocol compatibility issue. Let's talk about that. Remember legacy, our old system, right? Think about it for a second. If there's a problem in a plant and there's an equipment that was there in 70s or 80s, and believe it, a lot of plants have equipment. I know a plant that has equipment of 50s. Yeah. And it's still working. Is the maintenance is working. So they won't just change everything at once, right? Especially some of these equipment are just not, they're just crude, they're working. So they just leave it there. So in this case, right, if you have an equipment that hold and it's not compatible to your legacy, your new system. Let me give an example. If you're using Windows XP in your HMI, HMI is just the window that shows if you're in a what do you call it, manufacturing. You know those screen we are looking at. Somebody is looking at the screen. Pim, pim, pim. Manufacturing is going on, but I'm looking at the images in my screen, right? So the software used might be an old XP, and the plant does not care that it's working for them. They're doing their thing. They don't care, right? And I now decide to automate my plants. In the course of automating my plant, I need to change the software. So now I realize my HMI, that screen, the window, has compatibility issue because now we are using Windows. I don't know what version of Windows we are using right now, so, but it's a lot of version that's come after XP. So you can imagine that alone can take a while to make sure that old system is compatible to our newer model of Windows. So that's just the old gist of that. At the end of the day, okay, I like this part. Second part says production disruption during initial firewall implementation. And I've been part of this a lot. Your plant and operation guys, honestly, they don't they don't have time for stuff like this really. It's just the reality. You can't deal with this alone. So their leadership will be the one to massage them and let them know why it's important. So they get to go deal with that. If it's you talking, it's a dead end. It makes no sense to them. There's no reason you come and tell me you're shutting my plant. There's nothing you can say really that makes sense, to be honest. So let their leadership go figure that out. You just show up when they figure it out, then you help them install and all that. But it will disrupt business for a while. So I can imagine maybe like a few hours a day, then they resume operation after you've tested and everything is working. You know. Another big one is exposure to remote access. A lot of plants, they have service maintenance folks that would ping into the plant remotely. Equipments a lot come from Europe, Germany, Sweden, um, maybe Ireland. A few of these guys big in industrial controls. So their support team will be offshore. So they will just, you don't want them to physically come to your plant all the time. It will be very expensive, right? So they will just have a remote ID that they use to log into your plant to maintain, maybe once in every quarter. But that's also very important because there's a risk of making sure what access they have and what they're doing, somebody's monitoring it also. Yes, they're maintaining, but are we sure the person is not compromised? Are we sure the patches they're installing is not going to be a virus? So those are things we are also very, very on top of. Okay. Let's see. So yeah, that's just another project out there. But network segmentation is a big one.